The Miraculous Movie was one of, if not the best thing to have happened to Miraculous. Okay, maybe that's a little too dramatic. It wasn't like that good, but it was still amazing and I loved it. And quickly, I just want to say, of course, this video is just about my opinion and like my perception of this movie. I know not everybody thinks about this movie in the way that I did, and if you don't, that's totally fine. But it also doesn't mean that anything that I say or anybody else in the comments says is wrong. Just remember to be kind and respectful towards everybody's thoughts. This could just be me, but I really feel like if you've never seen Miraculous before, this was a really good movie to give you a start. Despite it being made with the show in mind, you don't necessarily have to have prior knowledge of the show to be able to enjoy it, which I think is honestly a really good aspect of this movie. However, I do feel that it's important to mention that for some people who don't know anything about the show, it could end up being very confusing. Both of my parents who have never watched the show before watched this movie, and they had to ask a lot of questions about it. There are many times where I found myself telling them, if you would watch the show, it would make sense. Which is definitely a big downside, but on the flip side, there are two other movies that will probably explain a lot of the things that are confusing people, so I don't think it's really like that much of a problem. And not to mention, this is the beginning of the story. It's normal for there to be mysteries and things that don't make sense to you. This movie is basically just a retelling of the same story, and so we're much further into the story in the show because we've had 5 seasons. This is just one movie, so of course we won't know everything. And as for the other side of the spectrum, which I can talk about on a more personal level as I have been a fan of the show for quite some time, it was super nostalgic. I went into this movie thinking hardly anything about it would be similar to the show. However, there were a lot of similarities, but not to the point where it felt repetitive at all. I think the changes in the characters' personalities and also the change of events is what really helps make it not feel like it's the exact same thing over again. But then again, all of the similarities between characters and events just makes it feel like watching the show again. It was nostalgic in like a new kind of way. I don't know if that's a good way to explain it, but it's like the only way that I can. Especially with the Agrest Dark ending in season 5, this was such a wonderful thing to be able to experience. It felt like watching the show for the first time again, which I absolutely loved. Seeing Lady Noir act the way that they used to was one of the best feelings ever. I've missed them so much. And also seeing Cat Noir's very like flirty jokester personality was really nice as well. I mean, he still does have that personality in the show, but he doesn't usually act like that much anymore. In a few ways, this movie just feels like everything we've ever been missing coming back to us. To be honest, Jeremy did such an amazing job at really capturing the best parts of the show, but in a changed new way. Going into the whole like musical aspect, I will say, I was never really sold on the whole action musical idea. It just seemed really weird and made me question whether or not I'd actually really like this movie. And to be honest, even up until the point that I actually watched this movie, I still was not sold on it being a musical. But after watching the movie, I can say with full confidence that I loved the fact that it's a musical. The songs were amazing. Once again, it also just adds like such a different feel to Miraculous in the best way possible. I'm pretty sure Jeremy's mentioned this before, but there's so much you can say in a song that you can't say in dialogue, so I feel like it just adds so much more emotion. Also really want to give a huge props to Jeremy for not adding any kind of musical number during the action scenes. That was definitely one of the reasons why I was so skeptical about this movie. Just thinking about them singing mid-Akuma fight made me cringe so hard. So the fact that nothing like that happened, that they really made sure to separate action and the songs, was amazing. And also the fact that when Gabriel was like explaining everything to Adrian, it wasn't in song form. I feel like with most musicals he would have been singing instead of like just talking and explaining. So I'm so glad that Jeremy didn't have that. I think my favorite thing overall about this movie is all of the little details, especially the ones that pay homage to the show. For example, there are multiple times in this movie where you can see different pictures that are taken right from the show. At one point, you can actually see Show Adrian on Gabriel's wall in the movie. And then also at the beginning of the Lady Noir montage, you can see Bubbler and Guitar Villain. It's not like they changed the animation or the way that they looked to fit the movie. Like, it's straight from the show, which is so cool. Definitely adds to my very nostalgic feeling. Some other things that I loved about this movie are, first of all, the lessons and messages of this movie. These topics of becoming and accepting who you truly are and loving yourself along with others for who they truly are is a really big lesson of the show. However, it's not like a widely and extremely huge thing mentioned within it. Like, I mean, if you pay attention to the show, you can tell that it's a part of it, but it's not really focused in on and talked about. But it is in this movie, which I really loved that they focused in on that. Like I briefly mentioned earlier, I also think that Jeremy did an amazing job at capturing the characters and their personalities. I mean, the characters were all different from the show in a few ways, but it wasn't to the point where they didn't feel like the characters we know and love anymore. I mean, unless we're talking about Plague, but I'll get into that in a minute. Like, specifically with Adrian, he's probably the most different to a show character, besides Plague, of course. But I love that because it feels more realistic. Him being so sad and down most of the time, considering the circumstances he was in, is much more accurate to what someone who was in that position would actually be like. But I also feel like that change doesn't necessarily take away from who Adrian is as a character. He still has the same, sunshine boy vibe that show Adrian has. Especially if you're looking at Adrian, after he had already met Ladybug, he was very happy, and I feel like during that time, he just really reminded me of show Adrian. In the end, I feel like Jeremy just added aspects to the character's personality rather than, actually changed them. Also, just have to say, I loved the very, dark and deep undertones of the voices at some parts of the movie.
Into a terrifying monster. I hate you, Ladybug and Cat Noir.
I don't know how to describe it, but I just love it, and it's so cool. It added something to the movie that I loved. I don't know how else to describe it. And of course, I had to mention this, the animation. I was literally blown away by it. It's so good, so beautiful. Honestly, spent the whole movie just admiring it. This next one might be a little controversial, but I actually liked the way the movie ended. It was disappointing that we didn't see them kiss, and I love that. It gives us a really big thing to look forward to in the second movie. And I mean, just knowing that they kiss and have revealed is satisfying enough for me. And also, we see them kiss so many times in the show. If you want to see them kiss, just watch the show. Now, if the show didn't exist and this was just the movie, oh, I would be so mad. But the show does exist, so I don't really mind the cliffhanger that much. Another thing I really wanted to bring up was the songs. Each one was so good, and for different reasons. If I Believed in Me has to be one of my favorites, mainly just because of Lou's voice. It was so pretty. I think it's such a good song to start the movie off with because going back and listening to the song after seeing all of the development within her character, seeing that now she does believe in herself, I absolutely love. I'm adding this one in here despite it not actually being in the movie because the song is so freaking beautiful. The melody is just, hey, so it's editing me, and I feel the need to come on here and explain that this song is in fact in the movie, but it's not the same version that I'm referring to in this moment. At one point in the movie, Adrian goes to the same stage that his mom used to perform at. There's music in the background, and that music is Alone Again. They basically just took out the vocals for the movie. Why they did that, I have no idea. And even though I'm sad that they took out the singing, I'm actually really glad that they kept the music in there because this song is actually my favorite out of all of the songs because of the music. It is so extremely beautiful. I could literally spend my whole entire day just listening to this song over and over again. If you guys haven't already, I definitely recommend listening to the song. It is such a tearjerker. Actually, the whole scene is a tearjerker. I'm literally about to cry just thinking about it. No, seriously. This is me while I'm writing this script. I I loved the message of the song. It's a really good one for everyone to hear. It shows us that she didn't have to become Ladybug. She already was. She just needed someone to bring it out. And I feel like that relates to us because we already have everything we need to be able to be who we are. It's just a matter of believing and accepting yourself. My lady is so freaking cute. It's mainly talking about how she came into his life and brightened it up. His life has always been really hard ever since his mom died. As he mentions in the song, it's been a really long time since he genuinely smiled. And the second that she came into his life, it's like he couldn't stop smiling. I love that. She saved him in a way, which makes the ending of the movie just that much sweeter. He can finally be with the person that brought him joy when no one else seemed to. Such a small but impactful and adorable part of this movie. This song, I don't even have words. Best villain song ever. Keith's voice was so amazing, like, okay. And like the high note at the end. So super underrated. I'm totally on the superhero side until this song comes on. I'm chanting Hawkmoth along with them, I don't even care. Courage in Me is definitely a fandom favorite. I just honestly love comparing this song to the very beginning song. Like, it started off as her not believing in herself and thinking that she would never believe in herself, to her actually starting to believe in herself and find the courage in her to be able to be who she needs to be. The message, the music, the singing, the transformation scene towards the end, all amazing. 10 out of 10. And oh my, don't even get me started on Stronger Together. The way this song makes me feel is out of this world. I just don't think that I have words to describe this song and like the Lady Noir in this moment. My favorite part of this song though is the last like 2.5 minutes. For two reasons. First of all, if you guys don't know, before Stronger Together was created, the song was originally called The Last Dance, and towards the end of Stronger Together, the music kind of changes, and that music comes from The Last Dance, which for someone who has been obsessed with the instrumental, it was literally the best thing ever. The other reason is that you get to really hear and understand their feelings. Ladybug's talking about how she's in love with him, but she shouldn't be, and Cat Noir is talking about how he can tell that she's in love with him. The look in her eyes is the same very in love look that he holds in his. I mean, like, the whole song was basically a love song, but it was more so a love song towards the end, which is probably also why it's one of my favorites. I mean, the very ending is kind of depressing though, but it's still cute. Such a beautiful song, especially the music. However, I will say, if I were to rank all of these songs, I think this one would be at the bottom. I mean, if it comes on, of course, like, I'll listen to it and sing along, but it's just not one that I would necessarily willingly choose to put on, at least not very often. So far, this video has been me talking about everything that I loved about it. However, I do want to mention some of the things that I didn't necessarily like. The first one being the fact that we didn't really see Adrian's feelings for Marinette. They seemed like just friends. This movie is very Lady Noir focused, so I'm not saying that it should have been based around Adrianette, but I would have at least loved to see more of Adrian's true feelings for Marinette, because I don't know if you guys know this, but in the book for this movie, it states that he was in love with Marinette along with Ladybug, just like how he portrayed in the song The Wall Between Us, which obviously was taken out of the movie. His feelings for both people is just such an important part of the love square. I mean, we clearly got to see Ladybug's feelings for both Cat and Adrian, so it just would have been nice to see a little bit more focus on his feelings for Marinette, since, like I said, it was stated that he clearly did have them for her. Especially because, like, up until I found out about what was said in the book, I had no idea that he even liked Marinette. I mean, I could tell that they ended up being really good friends throughout the movie, but like, I wasn't really getting like I'm in love with you vibes like I do from show Adrian. So I think just a little bit more emphasis on that would have been so amazing. And the last thing I really had a problem with was, you guys probably guessed it, Plag. Now hear me out. I know that this is a different story and they don't have to act in the same way, but Plag was just not it. I really wish that he would have been more like Show Plag. He was more caring and kind and adorable in the show. Like, Movie Plag gave off the same vibes as Show Plag. Like, there were many times where Movie Plag would say something and I'm like, oh, Show Plag would say that too. But he's not really the same character, which is so sad considering how similar Tiki was to Show Tiki. Also not a big fan of Adrian and Plag's relationship. To be honest, they didn't really have one. It kind of seemed like Plag didn't even like Adrian. In the show, Plag is like Adrian's best friend, his ride or die. They have an amazing bond that I wish the movie didn't lack. Plag was always there for him, especially in those times where he was really down. He always made him laugh. I so wish that we would have seen that kind of relationship between them. I really hope they have a better bond in future movies. Anyway, there are probably like a million more things that I could say about this movie. However, this is where I'll end this video. Like I said, this movie was absolutely amazing despite its flaws. And I honestly have so many theories for the second movie already.